He called me Barren to my face, signed the divorce papers, and married someone fertile within 6 months. What Ronald Salas didn't know, what his billionaire family didn't know, was that the day I walked out of that mansion with one suitcase, I was already carrying his twins. 5 years later, I registered my children at his academy, thinking I could stay invisible. Then Harold smiled at the orientation, his father's exact dimple in his left cheek, and every head in that room turned to stare at the man on stage who'd gone completely still. "My God," Ronald whispered into the microphone, staring at the children he didn't know existed. "They're mine." And in that moment, I had to decide, run again or finally make him face what he threw away. I hadn't set foot in this part of the city in 5 years. Not since the divorce. Not since the day Ronald Salas looked at me across his marble office desk and said, "Megan, I can't build a legacy with a woman who can't give me children." I should have stayed away. I could have registered Harold and Laura at any school, some small, quiet place on the edge of town where no one knew my name or recognized the weight it used to carry. But this school was the best. It had the teachers, the programs, the opportunities my children deserved. And I'd be damned if I let my past steal their future. So I stood in the marble lobby of Salas Academy, yes, his academy, funded by his empire, with my 5-year-old twins pressed against my sides, and told myself I could do this. Harold tugged my hand. "Mommy, this place is fancy." "It is, sweetheart." Lara, quieter than her brother, whispered, "Do we have to stay here?" I knelt down, brushing her dark curls away from her face. "Only for a few hours today, love. Just to meet the teachers and see your classroom. Then we'll go home. I promise." She nodded, but her little hand tightened around mine. I stood, smoothed my dress, and walked toward the registration desk like I belonged here. Like I wasn't the woman who'd once been thrown out of this world for not being good enough. The receptionist barely looked up. "Name? Megan Walters. I'm here to register my children, Harold and Laura." She clicked through her computer, frowning. "Walters, I don't see an appointment. I called last week. They said walk-ins were fine for new student registration." She sighed, clearly annoyed, and gestured toward a hallway. "Wait in the assembly hall. Orientation starts in 10 minutes. I nodded, took the twins' hands, and walked. The assembly hall was enormous. High ceilings, polished wood floors, rows of chairs facing a stage draped in deep burgundy curtains. A handful of other parents sat scattered throughout, clutching registration folders, whispering to their children. I chose a seat near the back, always near the exits, always ready to leave. Harold climbed into the chair beside me. Swinging his legs, Laura sat on my other side, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. "Mommy," Harold whispered loudly, "why do they have a stage? Are we watching a show? I think someone's going to talk to us about the school." "Like a principal?" "Probably." A woman in a crisp blazer stepped onto the stage, holding a microphone. "Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Salas Academy. We're so thrilled you've chosen to explore our institution for your children's education." I exhaled, slowly. This was fine. I could sit through a welcome speech, fill out some paperwork, and leave. No one here knew me. No one had to know. The woman continued, smiling too brightly. "Before we begin our official orientation, I'm pleased to introduce a very special guest who has graciously agreed to speak with us today. As many of you know, Salas Academy was founded and generously funded by the Salas family, one of the most respected names in business and philanthropy. Please welcome Ronald Salas." My entire body went cold. No, 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 no. The curtain at the side of the stage moved, and Ronald Salas stepped into the light. He looked exactly the same. Tall, sharp-jawed, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's cars. His dark hair was combed back, his expression calm and controlled the face of a man who'd built an empire and never doubted himself for a second. I couldn't breathe. Harold leaned toward me. "Mommy, who's that man?" I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Ronald stood at the podium, scanning the audience with that practiced ease he always had in front of crowds. He began speaking something about education, opportunity, the future, but I didn't hear a word. I needed to leave, now. I started to stand, reaching for Harold's hand, and that's when Ronald's eyes landed on me. He stopped mid-sentence. For a moment, the entire room seemed to freeze. His mouth hung open slightly, his carefully rehearsed speech forgotten. I watched the color drain from his face, watched his hand grip the edge of the podium like he needed it to stay upright. "Megan." He said my name into the microphone. The entire audience turned to look at me. My heart hammered against my ribs. I couldn't move, couldn't think. Harold looked up at me, confused. "Mommy?" And then Lara, sweet, quiet Lara, shifted in her seat, and Ronald's gaze dropped to the children beside me. I watched it happen in slow motion, watched his eyes move from my face to Harold's, then to Lara's. Watched the exact moment recognition slammed into him like a freight train. Harold had his eyes. That exact shade of steel blue that looked silver in certain light. Lara had his dimple, the one that appeared in her left cheek when she smiled. Both of them had his stubborn chin, his dark hair, his long fingers. Ronald's face went from pale to ashen. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Someone in the audience coughed. Another parent whispered something. The woman in the blazer looked between Ronald and me, clearly confused. And then Ronald did something I'd never seen him do in the 10 years I'd known him. He walked off the stage, not calmly, not with that controlled, powerful stride he was famous for. He stumbled. He pushed past the woman with the microphone, ignored the murmurs rising from the crowd, and came straight toward me. I stood, instinctively pulling Harold and Lara behind me. Ronald stopped 3 feet away, breathing hard. Up close, I could see the lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 5 years ago, the exhaustion beneath the expensive cologne and tailored suit. "Megan," he said again, quieter this time. His voice cracked. Are they?" I lifted my chin, forced my voice to stay steady. The words hung in the air between us like a verdict. He looked at Harold, at Lara, then back at me. His jaw worked, his hands trembling at his sides. "How?" He couldn't finish the question. "Not here," I said firmly. I could feel every pair of eyes in the room burning into us. Could hear the whispers starting, phones being pulled out, cameras turning our way. I grabbed the twins' hands and started toward the exit. Ronald moved to block me. "Megan, wait." "Not here," I repeated, sharper this time. I pushed past him, Harold and Lara stumbling to keep up. Behind me, I heard Ronald say something to the woman on stage, some excuse, some dismissal, and then his footsteps echoing behind us as he followed. I made it to the parking lot before he caught up. "Megan, stop, please." I spun around. "What do you want, Ronald?" "I want to understand." His voice was raw now, stripped of all that smooth confidence. "I want to know how this is possible." The doctors said." "The doctors were wrong," I cut him off. "Or maybe they lied. I don't know. I stopped caring about the why a long time ago." Harold tugged my sleeve. "Mommy, I'm scared." I immediately crouched down, cupping his face. "It's okay, baby. Everything's okay." But Lara was staring at Ronald. Her big eyes, his eyes were locked on him, and I saw her tilt her head, the way she always did when she was trying to figure something out. Ronald noticed. He took a step closer, then dropped to one knee, bringing himself down to her level. "Hi," he said softly. Lara didn't answer, just kept staring. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lara," she whispered. Ronald's breath hitched. "That's a beautiful name." Harold, braver than his sister, stepped forward. "I'm Harold. Who are you?" Ronald looked at me, his eyes full of something I couldn't name. Pain, regret, desperation. He trailed off, clearly not knowing how to answer. "A friend," I said quickly. "Just someone Mommy used to know." Harold frowned. "He doesn't look like a friend. He looks sad." Out of the mouths of babes. Ronald stood slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you didn't want me," I said simply. "You made that very clear." "I didn't know." "You didn't ask," I interrupted. "You didn't wait. You just decided I was broken and threw me away." He flinched like I'd slapped him. "Good." I turned back toward my car, but his voice stopped me one more time. "Megan, don't walk away again." I looked back over my shoulder. Ronald stood in the middle of the parking lot, looking more lost than I'd ever seen him. For a man who controlled boardrooms and commanded billions, he looked like a boy who just realized he'd lost something he couldn't buy back. "I walked away 5 years ago because you gave me no choice," I said quietly. This time, I'm walking away because I'm choosing my children over you. Just like I always have. I buckled Harold and Lara into the back seat, got behind the wheel, and drove away without looking back. But I could still feel his eyes on me. Could still hear the crack in his voice. And as much as I hated myself for it, part of me, some small, stubborn part I thought I'd buried, wondered what would happen next. You know, I've learned something over the years. Secrets have a way of finding the light, no matter how carefully you bury them. And when they do, they change everything. If you've ever had a truth surface that turned your world upside down, or if you're watching someone face the consequences of choices they can't undo, you're not alone in this. There are thousands of us watching these stories unfold, finding strength in knowing we're not the only ones who've had to rebuild from ruins. Hit that subscribe button if you want to walk this journey with me. Because what happens next? Let's just say Ronald Salas has no idea what he's walking into, and neither did I. That night, after I tucked Harold and Lara into bed and triple-checked the locks on every door, I sat in the dark of my tiny kitchen and let myself remember. I hadn't allowed myself to think about the beginning in years. It hurt too much. But seeing Ronald again, seeing the shock on his face, the desperation in his eyes had cracked something open inside me. So I let the memories come. I was 23 when I met Ronald Salas. I'd been working as an event coordinator for a charity gala, one of those glittering affairs where the champagne cost more than my monthly rent, and everyone wore smiles as polished as their jewelry. Ronald was the keynote speaker, the youngest billionaire in the room, the man everyone whispered about. But when he looked at me, really looked at me, I forgot about the whispers. He found me after his speech, standing near the coat check, exhausted and ready to go home. "You did an incredible job tonight," he said. I blinked, surprised he'd even noticed me. "Thank you. What's your name?" "Megan." He smiled, that slow, devastating smile that made my heart skip. "Megan, can I take you to dinner tomorrow night?" I should have said no, should have recognized the danger in falling for a man whose world was so far removed from mine. But I was young and hopeful, and so tired of being careful. So I said yes. That dinner turned into a second date. Then, a third. Within 6 months, Ronald asked me to marry him on a rooftop overlooking the city, with nothing but the stars as witnesses. "I don't care about your background," he whispered as he slid the ring onto my finger. "I don't care that you didn't grow up with money or connections. You're the only real thing in my life, Megan. Don't ever leave me." I promised I wouldn't. I meant it. The first year of marriage was a dream. Ronald was attentive, affectionate, constantly surprising me with little gestures that had nothing to do with his wealth. He'd leave notes on my pillow. He'd cancel meetings to cook dinner with me. He'd pull me onto his lap in the middle of the day just to hold me. "You're my anchor," he told me once. "Everything else is noise. You're what matters." I believed him. But then his mother started visiting more often. Sandra Salas was everything I wasn't: elegant, poised, born into a world where appearances were currency and weakness was unforgivable. She smiled at me during family dinners, asked polite questions about my day, complimented my dress, but her eyes were always calculating. "Have you and Ronald thought about children?" she asked one afternoon, her tone light as she sipped tea in our living room. "We've talked about it," I said carefully. "We're not in a rush." "Of course," she set down her teacup with a delicate click. "But you're young, dear, and Ronald needs an heir. The Salas name must continue." There it was. Not "we'd love grandchildren" or "you'd be wonderful parents." Just the cold, transactional truth. I was expected to produce. After she left, Ronald found me staring out the window. "Don't let her get to you," he said, wrapping his arms around me. "We'll have kids when we're ready." But the seed had been planted. Maybe you know what it's like when someone plants doubt in your marriage. When a mother-in-law, a friend, even a stranger makes you question whether you're enough. It's a special kind of poison, isn't it? Slow-acting, deadly. If that resonates with you, if you've ever felt like you were being measured and found wanting, leave a comment below. Tell me your story. Because I'm telling you mine. And sometimes, just knowing someone else survived the same battle makes all the difference. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. This story gets deeper, and you'll want to know what Sandra Salas did next. A year later, we were still trying. At first, it didn't feel urgent. We were young. These things took time. But as month after month passed, with no positive test, Ronald started asking questions. Maybe we should see a specialist. he suggested. Maybe we should just relax, I countered. But Sandra's voice was always there, hovering in the background. The Solace name must continue. So I agreed to the tests. Blood work, ultrasounds, invasive procedures that left me feeling more like a science experiment than a person. The doctors poked and prodded and asked questions that stripped away every bit of dignity I had left. And through it all, Ronald grew quieter. He stopped leaving notes, stopped canceling meetings, stopped pulling me onto his lap. I'm trying, I told him, one night after another failed cycle. I'm doing everything they tell me to do. I know, but his voice was hollow. Sandra, meanwhile, grew bolder. She started showing up unannounced, bringing pamphlets about fertility clinics and adoption agencies. She'd sit across from me at dinner and talk about options, her voice dripping with false concern. Ronald deserves a family, Megan. Surely you understand that. I understood. I understood that in her eyes, I was failing the one job I'd been given. The final test came on a cold Tuesday morning. I sat alone in the doctor's office. Ronald had a meeting he couldn't miss and waited for the results that would determine my worth. Dr. Harper, a kind woman with graying hair, sat across from me and folded her hands on the desk. Megan, the results are inconclusive. I frowned. What does that mean? It means we need to run more tests. There are some irregularities, but nothing definitive. Infertility isn't a simple diagnosis. It requires time and thorough evaluation. So I might still be able to have children? It's entirely possible. I'd recommend we schedule a follow-up in 2 weeks. I left that office with something I hadn't felt in months: hope. But when I got home and told Ronald, he barely looked up from his laptop. What did the doctor say? Inconclusive. We need more tests. He closed his laptop. Megan, how long are we supposed to wait? As long as it takes. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. He stood, running a hand through his hair. My mother called today. She knows someone, a fertility specialist in Switzerland. She thinks, I don't care what your mother thinks. The words came out sharper than I intended, and Ronald's expression hardened. She's trying to help. No, Ronald, she's trying to replace me. He didn't deny it. A week later, Ronald came home with papers. Not medical papers, legal ones. Divorce papers. I stared at them, spread across our kitchen table like a death sentence. What is this? Ronald wouldn't meet my eyes. I can't do this anymore, Megan. Can't do what? Love me? I can't build a legacy with a woman who can't give me children. The words punched the air from my lungs. The doctor said the results were inconclusive. We were supposed to do more tests. I had your results reviewed by another specialist. His voice was cold now, clinical. He confirmed it. You're infertile. That's not what Dr. Harper said. It doesn't matter what she said. I had it verified. I felt the room tilt. Verified by who? Does it matter? It did. It mattered desperately, but I couldn't form the words to argue. Ronald finally looked at me, and there was nothing in his eyes. No warmth, no regret, just cold, empty resolve. Sign the papers, Megan. My lawyer will handle everything. You'll be taken care of financially. I don't want your money. I want my husband. Your husband needs a family. And just like that, 10 years of my life, the laughter, the promises, the rooftop proposal under the stars, meant nothing. I signed the papers the next day. I packed my things while Ronald was at the office, leaving behind the life I thought would last forever. Sandra didn't even pretend to be sad. She was waiting in the foyer when I came down with my suitcase. This is for the best, dear, she said. You'll find someone more suitable for your circumstances. I didn't respond, didn't give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. I just walked out. 3 weeks later, I woke up nauseous. At first, I thought it was grief, heartbreak manifesting physically. But when the nausea didn't stop, I bought a pregnancy test at a pharmacy 2 towns over, where no one knew my name. 2 lines. Positive. I took 3 more tests, each one confirming what seemed impossible. I was pregnant. Christopher, my longtime friend and the only doctor I trusted, ran a blood test to confirm. Twins, he said, staring at the results. Megan, you're carrying twins. I couldn't speak, couldn't process. How could I be pregnant when every specialist had told me I couldn't conceive? The original results, Christopher said slowly. Do you still have them? I shook my head. His jaw tightened. Megan, I think someone manipulated your medical records. What? The Salas family is powerful. If they wanted you out of the picture. The implication hung in the air like poison. Sandra. You can't tell Ronald, Christopher said urgently. If he finds out you're pregnant, he'll take them. The Salas family doesn't lose. They'll claim the children, and you'll have no legal standing, especially after the divorce. They're my babies. And they'll take them anyway. Megan, listen to me. You need to disappear. Now, before anyone finds out. So I did. I left the city, moved to a quiet town where the Salas name meant nothing, and gave birth to Harold and Laura in a small clinic with Christopher by my side. And I vowed on everything I had left that Ronald Salas would never hurt my children the way he'd hurt me. Until today, when fate decided otherwise. He found me 2 days later. I don't know how. I'd been careful, used my maiden name on the lease, enrolled the twins under Walters, not Salas, avoided every place in the city where our old circles might overlap. But Ronald Salas didn't build an empire by accepting obstacles. The knock came just after 8 in the evening. Harold and Laura had finished their baths and were curled up on the couch in their pajamas, watching cartoons. I was washing dishes, my hands submerged in soapy water, when I heard it. 3 firm knocks. Deliberate. Demanding. I froze. Through the peephole, I saw him. Still in his work clothes, dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, tie loosened, hair slightly disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. He looked exhausted, desperate. I considered not opening the door. Considered pretending we weren't home, that he'd somehow gotten the wrong address. But then he spoke. Megan, I know you're in there. Please, I just want to talk. His voice cracked on the word please, and something in my chest tightened. Harold looked up from the couch. Mommy, someone's here. I dried my hands slowly, buying time I didn't have, then unlocked the door and opened it just enough to block the entrance with my body. How did you find us? Ronald's eyes were bloodshot, shadows carved beneath them. Does it matter? Yes. He exhaled, shoulders sagging. I hired someone, a private investigator. I had to know. He stopped himself, shook his head. Can I come in, please? No. Megan, you don't get to show up at my home and make demands, Ronald. Not after what you did. I'm not making demands. I'm asking, begging, if that's what it takes. His voice dropped lower, raw with emotion. Why didn't you tell me? There it was. The question I'd been dreading. I stepped out into the hallway, pulling the door partially closed behind me, so the twins wouldn't hear. Why didn't I tell you? I repeated, my voice shaking with barely controlled anger. You want to know why I didn't run to you after you divorced me for being barren and tell you I was pregnant? I didn't know. You didn't ask. I cut him off. You didn't wait for a second opinion. You didn't fight for me. You just believed whatever lie your mother fed you and threw me away like I was nothing. He flinched. That's not. Why didn't you believe in me? The words came out louder than I intended, years of pain finally breaking free. I was your wife. I loved you, and you didn't even give me the benefit of the doubt. Ronald's jaw worked, his hands clenching and unclenching at his sides. I was wrong. That doesn't fix anything. I know. His voice broke completely. God, Megan, I know. But those children, Harold and Laura, they're mine. You can't keep them from me. I can do whatever it takes to protect them. From their own father? From a man who abandons people when they're not useful anymore. The words hit him like a physical blow. He stepped back, pain flooding his face. Before he could respond, the door opened wider behind me. Mommy? Harold stood in the doorway, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. Is everything okay? I turned, forcing my expression to soften. Everything's fine, sweetheart. Go back inside. But Harold was already looking past me, his curious eyes landing on Ronald. Oh, it's the sad man from the school. Ronald's breath caught. Lara appeared behind her brother, quieter as always, her sketchpad tucked under one arm. She tilted her head, studying Ronald with those steel blue eyes that mirrored his exactly. Hi, Harold said, stepping forward with the fearlessness only children possess. Are you here to visit us? Ronald dropped to one knee, bringing himself to eye level with the twins. His hands trembled as he clasped them together. Yes, if that's okay with your mother. Harold looked back at me. Can he come in? Mommy? Every instinct screamed at me to say no. To close the door, lock it, protect my children from the possibility of more heartbreak. But Lara was watching Ronald with open curiosity, and Harold was already tugging on Ronald's sleeve, chattering about the dinosaur in his arms. "Just for a few minutes," I said finally, stepping aside. Ronald stood slowly, his eyes never leaving the twins as he entered our small apartment. I saw him take it all in: the modest furniture, the crayon drawings taped to the walls, the pile of shoes by the door, the life we'd built without him. "Your home is lovely," he said quietly. I didn't respond, just closed the door and crossed my arms, watching. Harold pulled Ronald toward the couch. "Do you want to see my drawings? I made a T-Rex fighting a spaceship." "I'd love to see it." Ronald sat carefully on the edge of the couch, looking utterly out of place in his expensive clothes, surrounded by our thrift store furniture and discount store toys. But when Harold climbed up next to him and started explaining his artwork with animated hand gestures, something in Ronald's face transformed. He smiled. A real smile. Not the polished corporate version I'd seen him wear at galas and board meetings. "This is amazing, Harold," he said, his voice thick. "You're very talented. Mommy says I get it from her side of the family." Ronald glanced at me. "Your mommy might be right." Lara had settled on the floor near Ronald's feet, her sketch pad open. She wasn't drawing yet, just watching him with that intense, quiet focus she had. Ronald noticed. "What do you like to draw, Lara?" She didn't answer immediately, just studied him for another long moment, then picked up her pencil and started sketching. Harold leaned over. "She draws people. She's really good. She drew me and Mommy last week." "I'd love to see that sometime," Ronald said softly. I stayed near the door, arms still crossed, watching this man I'd once loved interact with the children he didn't know were his until 2 days ago. Part of me wanted to hate how natural it looked, how easily Harold warmed to him, how Lara's pencil moved across the page, capturing Ronald's profile with surprising accuracy for a 5-year-old. But another part of me, the part I'd tried to bury, saw the tears gathering in Ronald's eyes as he watched them. Saw the way his hand hovered near Harold's shoulder, wanting to touch but afraid to presume. Saw the wonder on his face when Lara held up her sketch. It was him, unmistakably him, drawn in simple lines, but somehow capturing something essential. That's incredible, Lara," Ronald whispered. "Is that me?" She nodded, then carefully tore the page from her pad and handed it to him. "For me?" His voice cracked. "I can keep it?" Another nod. Ronald held the drawing like it was made of glass, staring at it with an expression I couldn't quite name. Then he looked at me, tears streaming openly down his face now. "Megan, please, give me a chance to know them. I'm not asking for custody or rights or anything legal. I just want to be part of their lives, however you'll allow it." Harold looked between us, confused. "Mommy, why is he crying? Did we do something wrong?" "No, baby, you didn't do anything wrong." I closed my eyes, fighting against every protective instinct I had. These were my children. I'd raised them alone, protected them, loved them through every fever and nightmare and skinned knee. Ronald had missed all of it because of his own choices. But they were looking at him with open curiosity, not fear, not suspicion, just the natural warmth children have before the world teaches them to guard their hearts. "One supervised visit," I said finally. "This weekend, we can go to the park. 2 hours. That's all I'm promising." Ronald stood, still clutching Lara's drawing. "Thank you, Megan, thank you. I swear I won't." "Don't make promises you might not keep," I interrupted. "Just be there. Saturday, 10 o'clock, Miller Park." He nodded rapidly. "I'll be there. I promise." He caught himself. "I'll be there." Harold jumped up. "Are we going to the park with you, Sir Ron?" Ronald's expression softened. "Sir Ron? Well, I don't know what else to call you," Harold said matter-of-factly. Ronald looked at me, a question in his eyes. I shook my head slightly. "Not yet, maybe not ever." That was his to earn. "Sir Ron is fine," he said quietly. Then, to me, "I should go. Let you get them to bed." I walked him to the door. Before he left, he turned back one more time, his gaze moving from Harold to Lara and back again. "They're perfect," he whispered. "Absolutely perfect." Then he was gone, disappearing down the hallway with Lara's drawing pressed against his chest like a treasure. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it, my heart pounding. "Mommy?" Harold tugged my hand. Is Sir Ron coming back? I looked down at my beautiful boy, then at Lara, who'd already started a new sketch. Yes, baby, he's coming back. Whether that was a promise or a threat, I honestly didn't know. And just like that, my walls started cracking. Not because Ronald deserved it, he hadn't earned that yet, but because my children saw something in him I wasn't ready to see. Innocence has a way of cutting through years of hurt, doesn't it? If you've ever had to let someone back into your life for your children's sake, even when every part of you wanted to keep them out, share this story. Someone in your circle needs to know they're not alone in that impossible choice. And if this story is hitting home, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me, would you have let him in, or would you have kept that door locked forever? Let's keep going, because what happens at that park visit? It changes everything. Saturday morning arrived too quickly. I woke at dawn, already anxious, and spent 2 hours making sure Harold and Lara looked perfect, which was ridiculous because we were just going to the park. But some irrational part of me needed Ronald to see what I'd done without him, how well I'd raised them, how they didn't need his wealth or his name to be extraordinary. "Mommy, you're brushing too hard," Harold complained as I worked through a tangle in his hair. "Sorry, baby." Lara stood patiently while I buttoned her cardigan, her sketchbook already tucked under her arm. She never went anywhere without it. "Is Sir Ron really coming?" Harold asked for the third time that morning. "Yes. Will he like us?" The question broke my heart. "He already likes you, sweetheart." But what I didn't say was, "I'm terrified of how much you might like him back." Ronald was waiting at the park entrance when we arrived. He traded his usual corporate armor for jeans and a simple button-down shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked younger somehow, more like the man I'd fallen in love with a lifetime ago. He spotted us immediately, his face lighting up in a way that made my chest ache. "You came," he said, as if there'd been any doubt. I said I would. Harold ran ahead, his dinosaur backpack bouncing. "Sir Ron, guess what? Mommy let me bring my airplane book to show you." Ronald crouched down, bringing himself to Harold's level. "Did she? I'd love to see it." Within minutes, they were deep in conversation about jets and helicopters, and how high planes can go before they touch space. Ronald answered every question with genuine interest, never once checking his phone or looking bored. Lara hung back near me, watching them. "Do you want to join them?" I asked gently. She shook her head but clutched her sketchbook tighter. Ronald glanced over, noticing her hesitation. "Lara, I was hoping you could show me your favorite spot in the park. Would you do that?" She studied him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. We walked together through Miller Park, me trailing slightly behind, watching this strange new configuration of my family. Harold chattered nonstop, pointing out every interesting rock and stick. Lara led us to the duck pond, where she sat on the grass and opened her sketchbook. Ronald settled beside her, careful to leave space. "What are you drawing?" She didn't answer, just kept moving her pencil across the page. Harold plopped down on Ronald's other side. "Sir Ron, are you really super important, like Mommy said?" I tensed. I'd never told them their father was a billionaire. Had never explained the world I'd left behind. To them, Ronald was just Sir Ron, the man who'd appeared out of nowhere. Ronald hesitated, glancing at me. "I run a company. Some people think that makes me important." "What kind of company?" "Lots of different kinds. We build things, invest in new ideas, help other businesses grow." Harold's eyes widened. "That sounds hard." "It can be. But you know what's harder?" "What?" Ronald's voice dropped, thick with emotion. "Realizing you missed the most important things while you were busy being important." Harold frowned, not quite understanding, but Lara stopped drawing. "Like what?" Harold pressed. "Like knowing my children, getting to watch them grow up, being there when they lost their first tooth, or learned to ride a bike, or drew their first picture." He looked at Lara. "Those are the things that really matter." Lara's eyes, so like his, studied him with that unnervingly perceptive gaze she had. Then she carefully tore a page from her sketchbook and held it out to him. Ronald took it with trembling hands. It was the three of them, Ronald in the middle, Harold on one side grinning widely, Lara on the other holding his hand. They were standing together in front of a house with a red door and flowers in the yard. His first family portrait. "This is..." Ronald's voice cracked completely. He pressed a hand over his mouth, tears streaming down his face. This is the most beautiful thing anyone's ever given me, Lara. Thank you." She nodded solemnly, then returned to her drawing. Harold patted Ronald's arm. "It's okay to cry. Mommy says tears are just feelings that are too big to stay inside." Ronald let out a choked laugh. "Your mommy is very wise." I turned away, my own eyes burning. This wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to see him as anything other than the man who destroyed me. But watching him weep over Lara's drawing, watching him listen to Harold's endless questions with complete attention, watching him treat my children like they were made of something precious, it was destroying my carefully constructed walls. An hour later, after the twins had run off to play on the swings, Ronald and I sat on a bench 20 feet away, close enough to watch them, far enough for a difficult conversation. "You're good with them," I admitted reluctantly. "They make it easy. They don't know who you are." "Not really." Ronald nodded. "I know. And I'll respect however you want to handle that. He exhaled slowly. "I just want to be in their lives, Megan. However, you'll let me." "For how long?" The question came out harsher than I intended. "Until it gets inconvenient? Until your mother decides they're not good enough? Until my mother lied to me." The words stopped me cold. Ronald turned to face me fully. "I found out 2 years ago. I was reviewing some old financial records and came across payments to the medical practice that handled your fertility tests. Large payments." I started asking questions. My heart hammered. "What did you find?" "Sandra bribed someone to alter your test results. You were never infertile, Megan. The tests were manipulated to show what she wanted them to show." The world tilted. You knew?" My voice came out as a whisper. "For 2 years, you knew she lied?" "I've been looking for you for 2 years, he said urgently. "I hired investigators, checked hospital records, contacted everyone who might know where you'd gone. I wanted to tell you, to apologize. But you believed it when it mattered," I interrupted, my voice shaking with fury. "When I was your wife, standing right in front of you, you believed her over me. I know. You let her manipulate you into throwing away our marriage. I know. And now you think you can just show up and—" "I don't think I can fix it," Ronald cut in. "I know I can't, but those 2 children deserve a father who will fight for them, who will protect them, who will never," his voice broke, "who will never choose anything over them again." I stared at him, this powerful man who controlled billions but couldn't control his own mother, who destroyed us both with his weakness, but was now sitting here, wrecked and honest. "I don't trust you," I said finally. "I know. I won't let you hurt them the way you hurt me. I won't. I swear on everything I have, Megan. I won't." Before I could respond, Harold came running over, breathless and grinning. Lara followed more slowly, grass stains on her knees. "Mommy, can we come back next week?" Harold asked. "We'll see, baby." "Can Sir Ron come too?" I looked at Ronald, saw the desperate hope in his eyes. "Maybe." But Lara surprised us all by tugging on Ronald's sleeve. When he leaned down, she whispered something in his ear. His face transformed shock, joy, and overwhelming emotion all at once. "Are you sure?" he whispered back. She nodded. Harold frowned. "What did she say?" Lara looked at me, then back at Ronald, then said in her quiet voice, "Can we see Daddy again?" The word hung in the air. Daddy. Ronald broke completely, pulling Lara into a gentle hug as he sobbed. Harold looked confused for only a moment, before understanding dawned. "Wait, Sir Ron is our daddy?" I couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Ronald looked at me, silently asking permission. I managed a nod. "Yes," Ronald said, his voice raw. If that's okay with you. I'm your daddy." Harold processed this, then grinned. "Cool. My friend Jacob has a daddy. Now I have one too." And just like that, my carefully protected world cracked wide open. The visits became routine over the next 2 weeks. Ronald would arrive on Saturday mornings with coffee for me and pastries for the twins. We'd spend hours at the park or the children's museum, and slowly, so slowly, I barely noticed it happening. My apartment started to feel less like a fortress and more like a place Ronald belonged, which terrified me. On the 3rd Saturday, Harold was showing Ronald his collection of toy airplanes when he suddenly gasped. "Oh, Daddy, I forgot to show you Mommy's special book." My stomach dropped. "Harold, that's private." But he was already racing to my bedroom, Ronald following with an amused smile. I hurried after them, but Harold had already pulled the old photo album from my nightstand drawer. "Look, it has pictures of you and Mommy from before we were born." Ronald took the album carefully, and the moment he opened it, his smile vanished. Our wedding photo stared back at him. Me in my simple white dress, we couldn't afford anything elaborate. Ronald in his first custom suit, both of us grinning like we'd won the lottery. Which, in a way, we had. We'd found each other. "Harold, why don't you and Laura go watch TV for a bit?" I said quietly. But I wanted to show Daddy the two problem. "Now, please." Something in my tone made him obey. He took Lara's hand and left, closing the door behind them. Ronald sat on the edge of my bed, turning pages with trembling hands. There were photos from our honeymoon that weekend we'd stolen away to a cabin upstate because he couldn't take time off work. Pictures of us painting our first apartment, both covered in more paint than the walls. A snapshot of me sleeping on his shoulder during a flight somewhere. Then he reached the letters. I'd saved every note he'd left me during that first year. "Good morning, beautiful. Don't forget you're meeting the world's luckiest man for lunch. Came home early but you were already asleep. Didn't want to wake you. You looked like an angel. I love you more than yesterday. Less than tomorrow. Megan." His voice broke. "I should have thrown them away," I said, wrapping my arms around myself. "I meant to. You kept them." He looked up at me, tears streaming down his face. "After everything I did, you kept them." "I kept them because I'm an idiot who couldn't let go." He turned another page and froze. The sonogram pictures. I'd tucked them in the back, 2 grainy black and white images labeled with dates and measurements. Baby A, Baby B, Harold and Lara. When they were nothing but shadows and possibilities. "You were alone," Ronald whispered, staring at the images. "When you found out you were pregnant, when you had these done, you were completely alone. Christopher was with me. Christopher isn't their father. I should have been there." He pressed his hand over his mouth, his shoulders shaking. "God, Megan, I should have been there for all of it. But you weren't. I know. You chose to believe the worst of me instead of fighting for us. I know. And I loved you anyway." The words came out raw, stripped of all defense. "Even when you destroyed me, even when I had every reason to hate you, I loved you. That's why I kept these stupid letters and photos. Because I couldn't stop loving you, no matter how much it hurt." Ronald stood, the album clutched against his chest. "I never stopped loving you either. That's not enough. I know that too." He took a step toward me. "But I need you to know the man who signed those divorce papers, who let his mother manipulate him, who was too weak to fight for what mattered. That man is dead, Megan. I killed him the day I found out what Sandra did. And I've spent 2 years trying to become someone worthy of a second chance. You don't get to decide if you're worthy. I do. And the twins. Then tell me what I need to do. Please, I'll do anything." Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. We both froze. "Are you expecting someone?" Ronald asked. "No." I left him in my bedroom and went to the door. Through the peephole, I saw her. Sandra Salas, perfectly coiffed and dressed like she was attending a charity luncheon, not visiting a modest apartment complex on the edge of town. My blood turned to ice. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "What are you doing here?" Sandra's smile was razor sharp. "Megan, you're looking, well, how did you find me?" "The same way Ronald did, I imagine. Money opens many doors." She glanced past me into the apartment. "Are the children here? I'd love to meet my grandchildren." "They're not your anything." Her expression hardened. "Legally, they are Salas heirs, which means they belong to our family. They belong to themselves, and to me." Sandra pulled an envelope from her designer handbag. "I'm prepared to offer you $5 million. Take the money, sign custody over to Ronald, and disappear. You'll never have to work again." I stared at her, disbelief warring with rage. "You think I'd sell my children? I think you're a practical woman who understands she's outmatched. Ronald is a billionaire with unlimited legal resources. She looked me up and down. And you. If this goes to court, you'll lose. Save yourself the humiliation and take the money. Get out." "I'm trying to be generous, Megan, but if you refuse, I will destroy you. I'll ensure every judge, every social worker, every person who matters knows about your past instability. How you disappeared for 5 years, denied Ronald access to his children, raised them in poverty when they could have had everything. They have everything that matters. Do they? Sandra's voice turned venomous. Or do they have a bitter mother who kept them from their father out of spite? Who's really being selfish here? Dear, my hands shook with fury. You manipulated medical records. You destroyed my marriage. You stole 5 years of my children's lives with their father because you didn't think I was good enough for your son. And I was right, wasn't I? Look at you. Look at this place. Harold and Lara deserve better. They deserve a grandmother who isn't a sociopath. Sandra's smile disappeared completely. You have 48 hours to accept my offer. After that, I will bury you. She turned to leave, and that's when Ronald appeared in the hallway behind me. You'll do no such thing. Sandra spun around, her face paling. Ronald, I didn't realize you were here. Clearly. His voice was colder than I'd ever heard it. How much of that did you mean? I was simply trying to bribe the mother of my children, threaten her, use your power to manipulate another situation because you didn't get your way. He stepped forward, positioning himself between Sandra and me. How much did you pay to have Megan's medical records altered? Sandra's composure cracked. That's not how much. Ronald, you don't understand. That woman was wrong for you. She couldn't give you the legacy you deserved. She gave me Harold and Laura. His voice echoed through the hallway. She gave me everything that matters, and you took it from me. You took 5 years of my children's lives. You destroyed my marriage. You turned me into someone I despise. I did what was necessary to protect our family's future. Our family's future is standing right behind me. Ronald's jaw clenched. And you are no longer part of it. Sandra's eyes widened. You don't mean that. I mean every word. You will not contact Megan. You will not go near my children. You will not use the Sala's name or resources to threaten this family ever again. If you do, I will personally ensure every board you sit on, every charity you chair, every social circle you inhabit knows exactly what you did. Ronald, we're done. Get out. For the first time in the decade I'd known Sandra Salas, I saw genuine fear flash across her face, but it was quickly replaced by something darker. You're choosing her over your own mother. I'm choosing my family, the one you tried to destroy. Sandra's expression hardened into something cruel. You'll regret this, Ronald. Both of you will. Then she turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the floor like a promise of war. Ronald stood frozen until the elevator doors closed behind her. Then he turned to me, his face ashen. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry she came here. I couldn't speak, could barely process what had just happened. Ronald had defended me, against his own mother, without hesitation. She won't stop, I finally managed. You know that, right? I know, but she'll have to go through me first. He took my hands, and this time Megan, I won't let her win. Have you ever watched someone finally stand up to the person who controlled them for years? There's something powerful about that moment when weakness transforms into strength, when a man finally chooses right over easy. I'd waited 5 years to see Ronald defy his mother. Part of me didn't think it would ever happen, but seeing it, hearing him defend us without hesitation, it changed something I didn't expect. If this story is resonating with you, if you've been waiting for someone to finally choose you over everyone else, drop a like and let me know in the comments. Have you ever given someone a second chance after they stood up for you? I'd love to hear your story. And don't forget to subscribe, because what happens next at the school? It's the moment everything becomes public, and there's no going back. The Salas Academy Spring Talent Showcase was supposed to be simple. Harold had been practicing his dinosaur presentation for weeks, complete with hand-drawn illustrations and sound effects he'd perfected in our living room. Laura's artwork, 3 watercolor paintings of our family, had been selected for the student gallery display. It should have been a proud, uncomplicated moment. But nothing involving the Salas name was ever simple. Mommy, do I look okay? Harold tugged at his button-down shirt, one of the few nice ones we owned, as we walked toward the school auditorium. You look perfect, sweetheart. Laura walked between Ronald and me, her small hand tucked into his. Over the past month, she'd grown comfortable with him in a way that both warmed and terrified me. She trusted him. They both did. And I was starting to as well. There are a lot of people here, Ronald observed as we entered the building. Parents filled the hallways, chatting and taking photos. But I noticed something else. Photographers with professional cameras, not just phones. People in business attire who didn't look like parents. Why are there reporters here? I asked. Ronald's jaw tightened. I didn't invite them. But word gets out when I attend public events. I'm sorry, I should have thought about this. It's fine, we'll just stay in the back. But staying invisible proved impossible. The moment Ronald entered the auditorium with Harold and Lara, heads turned, whispers rippled through the crowd. Cameras started clicking. Harold noticed. Daddy, why are people staring? Ronald knelt down, smoothing Harold's hair. Because they're curious. But you don't worry about them, okay? You just focus on your presentation. You're going to be amazing. What if I forget what to say? Then you look at me, and I'll remind you that you already know everything you need to know. I believe in you. Harold's face lit up, and he threw his arms around Ronald's neck. The cameras went wild. I pulled Lara close, as we found seats near the middle. Ronald sat beside me, his presence drawing attention like a magnet. A reporter approached, microphone extended. Mr. Salas, can you comment on the rumors about— Not today, Ronald said firmly but politely. This is my children's event. Please respect that. The reporter backed off, but I noticed others hovering nearby, clearly waiting for a story. The showcase began with a parade of nervous children singing songs and reciting poems. Harold's turn came halfway through. He walked onto the stage clutching his poster board, looking so small under the stage lights. Then he spotted Ronald in the audience, and his shoulders straightened. My presentation is about how dinosaurs and airplanes are both about being big and powerful and flying, even though dinosaurs didn't really fly except for the pterodactyls, which were actually not dinosaurs, but flying reptiles. He was off, chattering enthusiastically about his favorite subjects while displaying his hand-drawn illustrations. The audience laughed warmly at his enthusiasm. Ronald beamed with pride, recording everything on his phone. That's my son, he whispered to me, his voice thick with emotion. Something in my chest cracked open. After the performances, families moved to the art gallery, where student work lined the walls. Lara led us to her paintings, 3 watercolors showing our little family in different scenes. One at the park, one at home, one at the beach, though we'd never been to the beach together. That's where I want us to go, Lara said quietly, pointing to the beach painting. All of us, together. Ronald crouched beside her. Then we'll go. This summer, I promise. She smiled rare and beautiful and leaned against him. That's when I heard the commotion. Voices raised near the entrance, the crowd parting. And then I saw her. Sandra Salas swept into the gallery like a queen entering hostile territory, flanked by 2 men in expensive suits. She wore a cream Chanel suit and pearls, every inch the society matriarch, but her eyes were cold fury. Where are they? Her voice carried across the room. Ronald stood immediately, his expression darkening. What are you doing here? I came to meet my grandchildren properly, since you've been hiding them from me. Sandra's gaze landed on Harold and Lara, and her face transformed into a practiced smile. There they are. The Salas heirs. I stepped in front of the twins. You need to leave. I have every right to be here. This is a public event at a school my family built and funds. She moved closer, and I noticed the reporters perking up, sensing a story. Harold, Lara, I'm your grandmother. Harold pressed against my leg. Mommy? It's okay, baby. But Sandra was already reaching for Lara, her manicured hand extending toward my daughter's wrist. Come here, darling. Let me look at you properly. Don't touch her. I tried to block Sandra, but she was faster. Her fingers closed around Lara's wrist. Lara cried out, and something in Ronald exploded. He moved faster than I'd ever seen him move, placing himself between Sandra and Lara with such force that his mother actually stumbled backward. Touch my daughter again, Ronald said, his voice dropping to a lethal growl that silenced the entire gallery, and you lose me forever. The cameras went wild. Flashes erupted from every direction. Reporters surged forward. Sandra recovered quickly, her face flushing with humiliation and rage. Ronald, you're making a scene. You grabbed a 5-year-old child without permission? Ronald's voice rose, commanding the room. After I explicitly told you to stay away from my family, did you think I wasn't serious? These children are Salas heirs. They belong with 3. They belong with their mother, the woman you destroyed, the woman you manipulated and lied to because you were too arrogant to accept that I chose her. He stepped closer to Sandra, towering over her. You stole 5 years of my children's lives from me. 5 years I can never get back. And you're still trying to control everything. I did what was necessary. You did what was selfish. His hands shook with rage. You put your vision of legacy above my happiness, above Megan's dignity, above the well-being of 2 innocent children. And I'm done. Do you hear me? We are done. Sandra looked around wildly at the cameras, the crowd, clearly realizing this was being captured and would be everywhere by morning. Ronald, please, not here. We can discuss this privately. No. You made this public when you came here, when you put your hands on my daughter. Ronald's voice softened slightly, but remained steel hard. I don't want your money. I don't want your connections. I don't want anything from you except one thing. Stay away from my family. I'm your mother, and they are my children. My choice is made. Sandra's face twisted with a mixture of shock, betrayal, and pure venom. She looked at me over Ronald's shoulder, and the hatred in her eyes was palpable. You've turned him against his own blood, she hissed. No, I said quietly. You did that yourself. For a long moment, Sandra just stood there, cameras clicking around her, the murmurs of the crowd growing. Then, she drew herself up, smoothing her suit with trembling hands. You'll regret this. All of you. The only thing I regret, Ronald said, is not doing this 5 years ago. Sandra turned and swept out of the gallery, her entourage scrambling to follow. The moment she disappeared, Ronald turned to us. Lara was crying silently, rubbing her wrist. Harold looked terrified, and I was shaking so badly I could barely stand. Ronald scooped Lara into his arms. Did she hurt you, sweetheart? Lara shook her head but buried her face in his shoulder. We're leaving, Ronald announced. Now. He carried Lara while I took Harold's hand. And Ronald used his free arm to clear a path through the crowd, reporters shouting questions. Mr. Salas, can you comment on your relationship with... Is it true you have secret children? What about the custody situation? Ronald ignored them all, his focus entirely on getting us out safely. We made it to the parking lot, and only then did he stop, breathing hard. I'm sorry, he said, looking at me with anguished eyes. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. But I was staring at him, seeing something I'd never seen before. This wasn't the man who'd signed divorce papers. This wasn't the man who'd let his mother manipulate him. This was someone new, someone forged by regret and transformed by love. Someone who'd chosen us, publicly, irrevocably. You stood up to her, I whispered. I should have done it years ago. Harold tugged Ronald's pant leg. Daddy, is the mean lady going to come back? Ronald knelt down, gathering Harold into his arms alongside Lara. Not if I have anything to say about it. I promise you both no one will ever hurt you or your mother again. Not while I'm here. And looking at him fierce and protective and completely unraveling, I realized something terrifying. I was falling in love with Ronald Salas all over again. That day changed everything. Not just because Ronald finally chose us publicly, but because I realized something I'd been denying for weeks. I wanted him to choose us. I wanted this broken, flawed man to keep fighting for our family. Maybe that makes me weak, or maybe it makes me human. If you've ever felt your heart soften towards someone who hurt you, someone who's genuinely changed, share this video with someone who needs to hear that second chances can be real. And leave a comment. Do you believe people can truly change, or are we all just repeating the same patterns? Subscribe if you haven't yet, because what Ronald does next, late that same night, broken and desperate at my door, will either restore your faith in redemption or break your heart, maybe both. The knock came at 11:30 that night. I'd just finished tucking Harold and Lara into bed, a process that took twice as long as usual, because they kept asking questions about the mean lady, and whether Daddy was okay. I'd reassured them as best I could, but honestly, I didn't know if Ronald was okay. The confrontation at the school had been all over the news. My phone had been buzzing non-stop, with messages from numbers I didn't recognize, reporters requesting interviews, even a few supportive texts from other parents who'd witnessed Sandra's behavior. I turned it off hours ago. So when I heard the knock, my first instinct was fear. Had Sandra come back? Had she sent lawyers? Through the peephole, I saw Ronald. But not the composed billionaire I'd grown accustomed to seeing. This Ronald looked shattered. His tie was gone, his shirt wrinkled and partially untucked, his hair a mess like he'd been running his hands through it for hours. His eyes were red-rimmed, his face pale, I opened the door. Ronald, what are you? I can't sleep. His voice was hoarse. I keep seeing her grab Laura's wrist. I keep thinking about all the times I let her control me. All the years I wasted. All the damage I caused because I was too weak to stand up to her. He swayed slightly, and I realized he wasn't drunk. He was exhausted. I needed to see you, to see them, to make sure you're all okay. We're fine. The twins are asleep. I know. I shouldn't have come this late. He pressed his palms against his eyes. I couldn't be alone with my thoughts anymore, Megan. Every time I close my eyes, I see your face the day I gave you those divorce papers. I hear the things I said, the way I destroyed you. I'd never seen him like this. Even during our worst fights, even when he'd told me he wanted a divorce, Ronald had maintained control. He'd been cold, clinical, distant, but always in control. This man standing in my doorway was coming apart at the seams. Come inside, I said quietly, stepping aside. Ronald entered like he was walking through water, every movement heavy with exhaustion. He stood in the middle of my living room, looking lost. Sit down before you fall down. He collapsed onto the couch, dropping his head into his hands. For a long moment, he just sat there, breathing hard, shoulders shaking. I searched for you for 2 years, he finally said, his voice muffled. The moment I found out what Sandra did, I hired every investigator, checked every hospital record, followed every lead. I thought maybe you'd remarried, started over somewhere. I never imagined, his voice broke. I never imagined you were pregnant when I let you go. You didn't let me go, Ronald. You pushed me out. I know. He looked up at me, and the anguish in his eyes was almost unbearable. I know what I did. I replay it every day. Every single decision I made wrong. Every moment I chose my mother's approval over your trust. Every time I was too much of a coward to fight for what mattered. Why are you telling me this now? Because I need you to understand the man who hurt you is dead. I killed him. I spent 2 years becoming someone worthy of a second chance. And I still don't know if I've done enough. He stood abruptly, pacing. Today, when Sandra touched Laura, something in me snapped. I saw myself 5 years ago, letting her manipulate me, and I couldn't. His breath hitched. I can't be that person anymore. I won't. Daddy. We both spun around. Harold stood in the hallway, rubbing his eyes, his dinosaur pajamas rumpled. Lara appeared behind him, clutching her stuffed rabbit. I heard voices, Harold said. Are you fighting? Ronald's face crumbled. He dropped to his knees, right there in the middle of the living room, tears streaming openly down his face. No, buddy, we're not fighting. He looked at both twins, his voice breaking completely. I came to tell you both something important. Harold and Laura approached cautiously, clearly uncertain about seeing their father cry. Ronald wiped his face with shaking hands, but the tears kept coming. I need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I wasn't there when you were born. That I missed your first steps and your first words, and all the times you needed a daddy, and I wasn't there. But you're here now, Harold said, confused. I am. And I want to keep being here. For the rest of your lives. For everything school plays, and skinned knees, and birthday parties and bad dreams. I want to be the father you deserve. His voice cracked. But I need you to give me that chance. Please, let me be your father. Really, be your father. Harold looked at me, uncertain. Isn't he already our daddy? I couldn't speak past the lump in my throat. Lara stepped forward slowly, studying Ronald's tear-streaked face with her usual quiet intensity. Then she did something that broke us all. She placed her small hand on Ronald's cheek, exactly the way she did with me when I was sad. Don't cry, Daddy, she whispered. We want you here. Ronald let out a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob, pulling Lara into his arms. She went willingly, wrapping her thin arms around his neck. Harold, not wanting to be left out, threw himself into the embrace. Yeah, Daddy. You can stay, right, Mommy? I watched the three of them, my children and the man who destroyed me and was somehow putting me back together, and felt every wall I'd built over 5 years crack and crumble. Ronald, I said softly. He looked up at me over the twins' heads, vulnerable and raw, in a way I'd never seen before. You can stay tonight, on the couch. The relief on his face was almost painful to witness. Thank you, Megan. Getting the twins back to bed took another 30 minutes. They insisted Ronald read them a story. Then, another story. Then, just one more. He read until his voice was hoarse, until they finally drifted off with matching peaceful expressions. I found him in the kitchen afterward, staring at nothing. "There are blankets in the hall closet," I said, "and pillows on the top shelf. Megan." He turned to face me. "I meant what I said. I will fight for you this time. Not against you. For you. For us. For the family we should have been. You hurt me, Ronald, deeply. I know. And I don't know if I can trust you not to do it again. Then let me prove it. Every day, for as long as it takes." He took a step closer. "I'm not the man I was 5 years ago. That man was weak and easily manipulated. This man knows what matters, and what matters is standing right in front of me. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. One day at a time," I said finally. "That's all I can promise. That's enough. That's more than enough." I woke to the smell of burning toast. For a moment, I panicked. Had I left something on? Then remembered. Ronald. I found him in the kitchen, Harold perched on a chair beside him, both of them staring at a smoking toaster. Lara sat at the table, sketching the scene with obvious amusement. "We were trying to make you breakfast," Harold announced, "but the toast got too toasty." Ronald looked sheepish. "I don't actually know how to make breakfast. I always had a chef." Despite everything, I laughed. "Move over." For the next hour, we made breakfast together, scrambled eggs, fresh toast, not burned, orange juice. Harold chattered about everything and nothing. Lara added quiet comments. Ronald helped where he could, looking more at home in my tiny kitchen than he ever had in his mansion. And when we finally sat down to eat, the four of us crowded around a table meant for three. Something settled in my chest. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was something close to hope. "Daddy," Harold said through a mouthful of eggs, "can you come over for breakfast every day?" Ronald looked at me, a question in his eyes. I took a breath. "We'll see." But the small smile on his face told me he heard what I wasn't saying. Maybe we can try. "I don't think this is a good idea." I stood in front of my closet, staring at the 3 dresses I owned that could possibly pass for gala appropriate. None of them were right. None of them belonged in the world Ronald was asking me to step back into. Ronald sat on the edge of my bed, watching me with patient eyes. Over the past 3 weeks, he'd become a fixture in our lives. Breakfasts, dinners, bedtime stories, weekend outings. The twins had stopped calling him Sir Ron, and now it was just, "Daddy," said as naturally as breathing. And I was trying to trust, trying to believe this version of Ronald was real and permanent. "You belong there," Ronald said quietly. "With me. All 3 of you. It's a Salas Enterprise Gala, Ronald. Your entire board will be there. Investors, the media, Sandra." Sandra was removed from the board last week. She no longer has any connection to the company. I turned to face him. "You fired your own mother?" "I chose my family." He stood, crossing to where I stood frozen. "The gala is the annual shareholders meeting. It's broadcasted globally. And I want the world to meet the people who matter most to me. The twins are 5 years old. That's a lot of pressure. Then just you. Come with me. Let me show you that I'm not ashamed of where we've been or who we are now." Harold appeared in the doorway, wearing the small suit Ronald had bought him for special occasions. "Mommy, does my tie look okay?" He looked adorable and far too grown up, the tie slightly crooked despite his best efforts. "It's perfect, baby." Ronald knelt down, adjusting Harold's tie with gentle hands. "You look very handsome, buddy." Lara emerged next, wearing a soft blue dress that matched her eyes. She'd insisted on bringing her sketchbook, tucked now under her arm like armor. Looking at them, my babies, so excited and trusting, I felt my resolve crumble. "Okay," I said. "We'll go." Ronald's face transformed with relief and joy. Thank you, Megan." The Grand Metropolitan Hotel ballroom was everything I remembered and more. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across marble floors. Women dripped in diamonds and designer gowns. Men in tuxedos spoke in low tones about markets and mergers. And everyone stared when we entered. Ronald walked in with me on his arm, Harold holding my free hand, Lara clutching Ronald's. We looked like what we were, a family, and the whispers started immediately. "Is that her? Those are the children?" I heard Sandra was. "Can you believe he..." Ronald's hand tightened on mine. "Ignore them." But Harold was tugging my sleeve. "Mommy, why is everyone looking at us?" "Because your daddy is very important, sweetheart. But we're just regular people. That's what makes it interesting," I murmured. Ronald guided us to a table near the front. His table, I realized, the one reserved for family. Board members and executives approached throughout the evening, introducing themselves with carefully neutral expressions. Some were warm, others were clearly calculating, trying to figure out who we were and what we meant for the company's future. Through it all, Ronald never left our side, never acted like we were anything other than what we were, his family. When dinner ended and the formal program began, I thought we'd made it through. The speeches had been given, the quarterly reports presented. Now it was just the closing remarks. Then we could leave. But when the CEO finished his presentation and stepped aside, Ronald stood. "Ronald, what are you doing?" I whispered. He kissed my forehead. "Something I should have done 5 years ago." Then he walked onto the stage. The room quieted immediately. Ronald commanded attention, the way some people commanded armies, effortlessly. "Absolutely. Thank you all for coming tonight," he began, his voice carrying across the ballroom. "As you know, this is our annual shareholders meeting, where we discuss the company's performance, our projections, and the legacy we're building." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. "But tonight, I want to talk about a different kind of legacy." The murmurs stopped, every eye in the room fixed on Ronald. He looked directly at me. 5 years ago, I made the worst mistake of my life. I divorced my wife based on manipulated medical reports, influenced by someone who wanted to control my life and my choices. I threw away the woman I loved because I was weak, because I valued appearance over truth, because I let power corrupt what should have been sacred. The ballroom was dead silent now. Cameras flashed, phones came out, recording. "Megan," Ronald said, his voice softer now, but amplified by the microphone. "Would you come up here, please, you and Harold and Lara?" My heart stopped. "Ronald. Please." Harold was already standing, excited. "Come on, Mommy, Daddy wants us." Lara took my hand, her quiet strength lending me courage. Somehow, I made it to the stage on legs that felt like water. The lights were blinding. The crowd was a sea of faces, some shocked, some intrigued, some calculating. Ronald pulled me close, then crouched down to gather Harold and Lara into the circle of our bodies. "I want you all to meet my family," he said, straightening. "My wife Megan, yes, we're still legally married, because I could never bring myself to finalize what I started. And my children, Harold and Lara. They're 5 years old. They're smart and funny and talented and everything I don't deserve." Harold waved at the crowd. Several people laughed, the tension breaking slightly. Ronald's hand found mine, gripping tight. For years, I told myself that legacy meant buildings and bank accounts and board seats. I built an empire thinking that's what mattered, but I was wrong. He turned to face the audience fully, his voice strengthening. "My legacy isn't Salas Enterprise. It's this. It's Harold asking me questions about airplanes. It's Lara drawing pictures of our family. It's Megan forgiving me when I don't deserve forgiveness. This," he gestured to us, "is what I'll be remembered for. Or at least, it's what I hope to be remembered for." The cameras went wild. Flashes erupted from every direction. "I wronged Megan terribly," Ronald continued. "I let someone manipulate me into abandoning her when she needed me most. I missed the births of my children. Their first steps. Their first words. I lost 5 years because I was a coward." His voice cracked, but he pushed through. "But I'm not that man anymore. And I want to be very clear with everyone in this room, everyone watching this broadcast globally. If anyone objects to my family, if anyone has a problem with Megan and our children being part of my life and this company's future, I invite you to resign. Now." The room erupted. Some people gasped. Others started whispering frantically. A few board members looked genuinely uncomfortable. But then, someone started clapping. Then another. Then the entire ballroom rose in a standing ovation, applause thundering around us. Harold tugged my dress. "Mommy, is this real?" I looked at Ronald, this man who destroyed me and rebuilt me, who'd been weak and became strong, who'd chosen us over everything and felt something inside me finally heal. "Yes, baby," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "It's real." Ronald squeezed my hand, pulling me closer. He leaned down, his lips brushing my ear. Give me a second chance, please. Let me spend the rest of my life proving I choose you. Always. I looked into his steel blue eyes, the same eyes our children inherited, and saw the truth there. Not the polished CEO, not the billionaire, just Ronald, flawed and human and desperately in love. One more chance, I whispered. Don't waste it. His smile was brighter than all the cameras flashing around us. I won't. I swear on everything I am, Megan, I won't. Standing on that stage, with the whole world watching, I realized something profound. Redemption isn't quiet. It's not private. Sometimes, to truly claim a second chance, you have to stand in front of everyone who doubted you and say, this is who I am now. Ronald gave me that. He gave us that. If this story has moved you, if you believe in the power of public accountability and choosing love over pride, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what comes next will either restore your faith in second chances or break your heart when you realize some things can't be fixed, no matter how hard you try. Comment below. Would you have forgiven him? Or is some betrayal too deep to overcome? I want to hear your honest thoughts. The question came 3 weeks after the gala. We were sitting on my apartment steps watching Harold and Laura play in the small courtyard below. It was one of those perfect spring evenings where the air smelled like fresh grass and possibility. Move in with me. I turned to look at Ronald. What? You and the twins. Move into my home. It's safer, bigger. The twins could have their own rooms. A real yard to play in. There's space for art supplies and Harold's airplane collection. A library. A pool. He paused. A family. My heart hammered. Ronald, I know it's fast. I know you need time. But that apartment, he gestured to the building behind us, it's not safe enough. The locks are old. There's no security. After Sandra's threats, I can't sleep knowing you're here without protection. We've been fine for 5 years, but you don't have to just be fine anymore. He took my hand. Let me take care of you. All of you. Not because you need me to, but because I want to. Because you deserve more than fine. I looked down at our intertwined fingers. A month ago, I would have said no immediately. Would have seen it as him trying to control us, to buy his way back into our lives. But this felt different. I need to think about it, I said finally. Take all the time you need. I gave it 2 days. 2 days of watching Harold do homework at our cramped kitchen table, his papers competing for space with dinner plates. 2 days of Laura asking if she could have a real art desk like the ones at school. 2 days of lying awake at night, wondering if I was being stubborn or self-protective. On the 3rd day, I called Ronald. We'll try it. Slowly. The twins and I keep our apartment for now, just in case. The relief in his voice was palpable. Whatever you need, thank you. Megan, thank you. The Solace estate looked different than I remembered. 5 years ago, it had felt like a museum, cold, pristine, unwelcoming. But as we pulled through the gates, I noticed changes. The gardens were softer, more colorful. There was a swing set near the pool house. The front entrance had been repainted, a warm cream instead of stark white. You remodeled, I said. Ronald glanced at me. I wanted it to feel like a home, not a showcase. Harold pressed his face against the car window. Daddy, is that whole house yours? Ours, Ronald corrected gently. If you want it to be. The twins' rooms took my breath away. Harold's had walls painted like the sky, with model airplanes suspended from the ceiling. There was a desk for homework, shelves for his dinosaur collection, and a reading nook with pillows shaped like clouds. Lara's room was an artist's dream. Natural light poured through tall windows. An easel stood in one corner, a proper desk with drawers full of art supplies in another. Her walls were painted soft lavender, with space left intentionally blank. For your drawings, Ronald explained. So you can put them up wherever you want. Lara walked slowly around the room, touching everything with wonder. Then she turned to Ronald and did something that made my eyes burn. She hugged him, tightly, without hesitation. Thank you, Daddy, she whispered. Ronald's arms wrapped around her, his face crumpling with emotion. Anything for you, sweetheart. Anything. We moved in gradually. First, just weekends. Then a few weekdays. Then most of the week, returning to the apartment only occasionally, Like a safety net, I wasn't ready to cut loose. The twins adapted faster than I did. Within 2 weeks, they were calling it home without prompting. Harold made friends with the groundskeeper's grandson. Lara spent hours in her art room, creating masterpieces we hung throughout the house. And Ronald. Ronald was everywhere. Not hovering, not controlling, just present. He made breakfast with the twins while I showered. He helped with homework, his billion-dollar empire temporarily forgotten as he puzzled over second-grade math. He read bedtime stories with different voices for each character, making Harold giggle and Lara smile her rare, beautiful smile. And late at night, after the twins were asleep, he'd find me wherever I was, the library, the kitchen, the garden, and we'd talk. About everything, about nothing, about the past and the future, and the strange, fragile present we were building together. I don't know if I can ever fully trust you again, I admitted one night, sitting beside him on the patio overlooking the gardens. I know. And I don't know if I can ever forget what you did. I don't expect you to. He turned to face me. I just hope that someday, the good memories we make together outweigh the bad ones I created. It was the kind of answer the old Ronald never would have given. The old Ronald would have promised impossible things, made grand gestures, tried to fix everything with money or power. This Ronald just sat with me in the dark, holding my hand, giving me space to heal at my own pace. 3 months after we moved in, I woke to voices in the kitchen. I found all 3 of them, Ronald, Harold, and Lara, attempting to make pancakes. The kitchen was a disaster. Flour dusted every surface. Eggshells littered the counter. Harold had batter in his hair. "Surprise!" Harold shouted when he saw me. "We're making you breakfast." "We might have made a mess," Ronald admitted sheepishly. Lara held up a lumpy, slightly burnt pancake. "I made this one." I looked at them, my chaotic, beautiful family, and something inside me finally, fully gave way. This was real. This was ours. This was the future I'd never dared to hope for. "It's perfect," I said, meaning so much more than the pancake. That evening, after we'd cleaned up the kitchen disaster and had a proper dinner, after the twins were bathed and storied and tucked into bed, Ronald found me in the library. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." He sat beside me, close but not crowding. "Can we start over? Not as who we were, but as who we've become. As the family we were meant to be." I studied his face, the lines around his eyes, the gray threading through his dark hair, the exhaustion and hope warring in his expression. "I can't promise forever," I said honestly. "I can't promise I won't have bad days where I remember everything that hurt. I can't promise it'll be easy. I don't need easy. I just need a chance." I took his hand, threading our fingers together the way we used to, back when the world was simpler and love felt invincible. "Then you have one. One chance, Ronald. Make it count." His smile was brighter than any I'd seen in 5 years. "I will. Every single day, Megan. I will." 6 months later, on a random Tuesday evening, I stood in our kitchen watching my family. Harold stood on a stool, carefully measuring ingredients for pasta sauce under Ronald's patient guidance. Lara sat at the island, sketching the scene, her tongue poking out in concentration. Music played softly from somewhere. Laughter filled the spaces between words. This wasn't the life I'd planned. It wasn't the fairy tale I dreamed of as a young bride walking into the Sala's mansion for the first time. It was better, because it was built on truth instead of fantasy, on forgiveness instead of perfection, on second chances and hard conversations, and the slow, deliberate work of choosing each other every single day. I'd return to this city to give my children a future, to register them for school, to provide opportunities I couldn't offer in our small-town hideaway. I never expected to reclaim my own future in the process. Never expected to fall in love again, not with who Ronald was, but with who he'd become. Never expected to build something stronger from the broken pieces of what we'd lost. "Mommy," Harold called. "Come help. Daddy says you make the best sauce." I crossed the kitchen, sliding into the space they'd left for me. Harold on one side, Ronald on the other, Lara sketching us all with quiet contentment. Ronald's hand found mine over the cutting board. "Thank you," he whispered, "for giving us this chance." I squeezed back. "Thank you for earning it." And as the evening light slanted through the windows, turning everything golden and warm, I realized this was enough. Not perfect, not without scars, but enough. A family, a future, a second chance at the love we'd almost destroyed. And for the first time in 5 years, I wasn't looking over my shoulder anymore. I was looking ahead. I returned to give my children a future. I never knew I would reclaim my own. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, through the heartbreak, the anger, the slow rebuilding of trust, thank you. You're part of this story now too. Subscribe if this touched something in you. Share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances, in redemption, in the possibility that people can change when they truly want to. And please, leave a comment telling me, what would your ending have been? Would you have chosen differently? Because here's the truth I've learned. Life rarely gives us perfect closure. It gives us messy kitchens and burnt pancakes and children who force us to be braver than we thought possible. It gives us men who break us and then spend years proving they've changed. It gives us choices every single day to let go or hold on. I chose to hold on. And I'm still not sure if that makes me wise or foolish. But I know this. Harold and Lara have the father they deserve. Ronald has the family he almost lost forever. And me, I have a future I never expected. Thank you for walking this road with me. Until next time.